you for downloading the Tailoring Talk podcast. I'm your host, Roberto Revilla. This is episode 15. We are recording on a sweltering Saturday afternoon here in North London. And I know I always say I'm excited, but I am super excited today because this is Tailoring Talk's first live recording with an actual person in the same room as me. My guest has spent a life in sales, starting in retail and working his way through multiple roles, eventually pivoting and retraining to become a successful, now 5-star rated mortgage consultant at the award-winning Dynamo, one of the UK's largest brokerage firms. We've been colleagues at various points throughout our career history. We've been friends for a long, long time. It's a privilege to welcome Philip Rahman to the show. Philip, how are you?
Good, Bobby. Thanks very much for having me.
You're welcome. I'm surprised actually that you've still got some energy after all the food we've just eaten. We decided to do a barbecue today, and the thermometer has it's hit 28 degrees. It's pretty hot, huh?
Yeah, it's probably still cooking outside the food, which is fantastic. It's come off the grill, and I've had quite a lot of lamb and chicken, so I'm almost ready for a nap, but I'm glad to take the time out and do this.
Yeah, and you've actually worked really hard today, I have to say, because I was in a bit of a tiz trying to get the house ready and so on, because it's just been so busy recently. And Phil very kindly took over most of I'd say all of the cooking duties today, actually. And you did a really, really good job. If you need someone at your barbecue to get a nice, even roast, no kind of burnt bits and stuff, Phil is definitely your man. I was obviously thinking back to the beginning of our friendship, and it wasn't really a friendship at the start when we first met each other. So we both grew up in Croydon, a couple roads away from each other.
Yeah.
But we met when we were 17, which was, I'm going to give away our ages now, 27 years ago.
Jeez.
Almost. End of this summer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it would have been about 94, wouldn't it?
It was in
94 from 95.
No, summer of 94.
Yep.
Because I started at Comic Croydon as a sales, whatever they call the ones on the checkout.
Admin, yeah.
Yeah, cashier.
They called you administrator, which sounded more fancy than it was, but really it was just on the tills.
Yeah,
basically.
sales administrator.
Yeah.
Just a glorified checkout assistant.
Yeah.
So we wore the blue shirts.
That's it.
Yeah. So I started there early July, a couple of weeks after the store first opened in 1994. And I think you joined probably September, a couple months after me. Can you remember?
I think I actually started, I was still in college, and I think I started around I think it was the following summer actually I started. Like
Really?
May or June, the following year. Because you'd been there for a while. Because I think what had happened was you then got to move into doing like the IT sort of sales and stuff like that. And my first encounter with you actually was someone brought over something which was some kind of a software piece, and I couldn't use the barcode; it wouldn't work. And then I asked you. I basically picked up the phone for IT, and you picked up, and I said, "Yeah, I've got this game. It's called so-and-so software package," and you first immediately said, "It's not a game, Philip." And I was like, all right, well, whatever it is then, mate. Okay, fine. And then he just gave me the code. I was able to ring it through, gave him his product, and then he left, and that was that. And I thought, what a dick. That's the first thing I thought.
That is actually so me to this day.
Yeah, so that was my first encounter. Took a while, but yeah, we did become friends shortly after that, I think. Yeah.
No, I think it was sooner than that. I think you actually joined in 94. I think you joined a few months after I did, because I was like, I was considered the kind of baby of the sales administration team, and I was the one that got all the attention because all the managers of sales admin were all women.
Yeah.
And they're all absolutely lovely. You remember Janet, Becky, etc. Sorry, no, Becky was on sales, actually. She was on the floor.
Yeah.
But anyway, Margaret was the other one. So it was Margaret, Janet. And I was like the darling of the sales admin team. I was the youngest, and I was so keen, and I used to stay longer than I should have done and work extra hours for nothing and all of that. And then you came along, and all of a sudden I wasn't an only child anymore. And that really pissed me off. And luckily, so I actually remember not liking you when you started. And also you took checkout number 1, which was my favourite checkout. because of the girl that sat at checkout number 1, I was checkout number 2. And then all of a sudden she wasn't there anymore, because then she went to do actual, processing credit agreements and things like that. And then I was faced with your ugly mug sat there. Yeah. You're not ugly, but, at the time. And she wasn't there anymore, and it was you, and you took her away from me. So I hated you.
Yeah.
And then I think literally it was only a few weeks I had to put up with you, because then I got poached by the sales manager to then swap my blue shirt for a red one and go on the sales floor and become a salesperson, which was the start of my sales career. And then eventually you made the switch as well.
Yeah.
It was inevitable.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think from memory, what happened was there was one of the girls who was doing sales, and whenever she couldn't sell any extended warranties, she'd bring it to me because she knew I could sell them. And I remember selling the extra warranties and then just putting it in her details. And I remember putting quite a large order through with all the extended warranties, and it went in her name. But
I bet that was Sarah Louise Martin.
No, it was someone else. I think her name was Tina, because she was going out with your cousin.
Oh, Tina, the Welsh girl.
Yeah,
she was going out with Waz.
Yeah, and she brought it over to me, and then I just put it through, and I just added all the warranties and everything. And then all of a sudden, sales manager asked, "This sale that you did, why did you do it?" She goes, "Well." And I was a bit nervous at this time, because I think I was about 17, 18, and I was just like, Tina just brought it over to me and told me to put it through, and I was, because she'd been here longer, I thought, well, I better just do as she says, and that was that. And he was like, oh, right, okay. And he did that whole thing, he was like, oh, right, okay. That's the first thing he did, and then it transpired that I'd done a few more of these deals for her, and then one thing led to another, and it just ended up me joining the sales floor, and that was it. And haven't looked back, basically.
Yeah. It was funny because it was then that you and I guess, we ended up being thrown together almost, because we were then suddenly made responsible for the sort of home cinema sound theatre kind of area.
Yeah, and the hi-fis.
Exactly. And that was where we really bonded, because we had we're very similar musical tastes.
Yeah.
And we both love football. And we just all of a sudden kind of clicked. I remember you were the one constant. I mean, when I got a car, especially when I got that Fiat Uno, do you remember?
Yeah.
I had to put a paper clip into the fuel pump to hold the thing together, otherwise it would keep conking out. I remember, and I'd rigged up a CD player in there with portable speakers, because I couldn't, like, my dad wouldn't let me put a stereo into it. And we had things like Jamiroquai, The Prodigy,
it was state of the art. It was state of the art at the time, mate.
Oh yeah, exactly.
It was state of the art. I mean, we weren't sort of going to the full sort of level of having the Alpine systems, the speakers, and all that kind of stuff. But it was, for where we were and our place, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. But we had our little pack of demo CDs carefully selected, didn't we?
Absolutely.
And we killed it. We sold a lot of hi-fi equipment.
Yeah.
And then eventually they started up the multimedia department, and I applied for that job and I got it. So I went to join Sam and Wes to sort of co-run that. But yeah, it were good times, man.
They were good times.
I kind of look back on it now, and I think we actually had it easy back then, but we just didn't know it at the time.
No, absolutely.
There's a quote in the US version of The Office, which is one of my favourite shows. And towards the end, and spoiler alert, anyone who's not seen it, and if you haven't, just stop listening to this podcast now, go and watch all 9 seasons of the US Office and then come back. But spoiler alert, in the last episode, one of the characters says, played by Ed Helms, he says, I wish there was a way to know that it's something like, I wish there was a way that you could know that you're in the good times when they're actually happening.
Absolutely.
But life doesn't work like that often. No. You realise the good times once time has passed.
You've got to experience some bad times first, otherwise you just never appreciate it, and then you can look back on it with some love for it. Absolutely.
Exactly.
I was thinking back to the fact that the TVs at the time were so expensive. I mean, it was like for a 28-inch, Dolby Pro Logic Toshiba television, it was £1,000. And then the video that went with it would have been about £400. You'd sell it as a
$450
package.
if you were going to sell a forehead that also had some form of, auto reverse, extra long play.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We're talking VHS here.
Yeah,
children.
exactly. Yeah, absolutely. This was good technology, guys. This was seriously good technology. But it was so expensive, and people were just signing these credit agreements for interest-free credit. Didn't read a single thing about what they were getting into, and there were just loads of these deals just going through. People, I don't know what it was. Just after the recession, it was a recession around about 91, 92. And coming out of that, for some reason, we just managed to catch the wave of people just having money to spend. And they were just doing things on interest-free credit. There was loads of people who had credit cards that they never had before. And people were just spending money like it was going out of fashion. It was ridiculous. I mean, fortunately, the people that they hired, a lot of them didn't know much about the equipment they were selling. But fortunately for you and I, we took the time out to learn about the products that we were selling and really just have a passion for it. And that's what it was all about, just transferring that passion about the things we were selling. And people couldn't help it. It just was like, oh, we've got to have it. And we didn't even have to close. We didn't know about the nuances of closing or anything like that. We just had a load of passion. And that was enough back then. It was so easy. It was fun times.
Exactly.
Good times.
When you think back to it, we were under a lot of pressure. I mean, not just to hit sales numbers, but also we had all of our key performance indicators like selling extended warranties and selling accessories. You remember Albert? Sell your batteries, sell your SCART leads and all of this stuff. A SCART lead, people, is what you used to connect a VHS player to a television back in the old days. So God, SCART leads, seriously. And
store credit as well.
We had store. Yeah, remember time cards?
Yeah, and that's the craziness. They were telling 16, 17-year-olds to sell. Not only were they telling them to sell credit, which by today's standards they would not be trained or qualified for. You need an actual qualification to do that now. But they were selling things like payment protection insurance. Again, no qualifications for selling these sorts of policies, which basically meant that, for a lot of people now, the effects of that was PPI insurance and people claiming the PPI back. And there must have been a horrendous amount of customers that were buying this store credit and the payment protection, didn't have a clue what they were signing up for. All we asked, you want this time card? Yeah. Oh, do you want the payment protection insurance on it? Yeah. And that was it.
Yeah, we were just whipping them through.
Yeah.
And also, do you remember when they got declined? You see, this is digging. I've not thought about this.
You can't talk about this. No, you can't talk about this.
But your sales manager would come in and it'd be like, because we'd obviously done all the hard work, right? They bought
this
fridge.
is one of the reasons why Comet is now out of business.
Basically, we're now spilling the beans. Kingfisher haven't owned them for a long time, so hopefully we're not going to get sued. If anyone's actually listening to this. But the one person that's listening to this, with our luck, will be an ex-director or a non-exec. So I remember Mark, right? So, we would do all the hard work, and you remember. We had our sales manager, who was also a very good friend as well. Lovely Mark Collins, and we would bring the customer over when we had a customer who was a whale who basically needed to buy a lot of stuff, and Mark would whip out his Parker pen and a sheet of paper, and you remember his scrawl, the way he had a very sort of precise.
He couldn't hold his pen properly.
No, he couldn't hold his pen properly. So he had this very precise way of writing, but I think it was partly deliberate on Mark's part because he was really trying to almost carve that message into the customer's brain, right? And so he would write down everything. So here's your television and your video. And then, you're getting a SCART lead? Yeah. Well, and if it wasn't on the order, he would just write it down anyway. And then a fridge and freezer, and then your 5-year warranties. And then the customer would be like, "Oh no, I don't want any warranties. I already told Philip that." And we're like, "Okay, yeah, but just for the purposes of this exercise, because we might be able to do a better deal for you. And you're doing it on buy now, pay later, are you? Or are you going to take it on time card?" Now, buy now and pay later is exactly what it is today. It's you pay a deposit, then you don't pay anything for a period of time, and then at the end of that period, you either pay the lump sum off and you've not paid any interest, or you let that balance roll on to an interest agreement where you pay a monthly payment, and it's something ridiculous like 30%, 29.9% APR.
Yeah.
Crazy. Or you could take a time card out, which is basically a store card. You start paying a much lower monthly payment straight away, but it's 29.9% APR. So suddenly your $4 or $5 grand purchase, after you've eventually finished paying it off, you can pay it off. You could pay it off. Sorry, I'm talking like I'm there now. You could pay it off at any time you wanted to. I'm really getting out to write Currys. If you're hiring, they don't sell like that anymore in Currys. In fact, they don't actually sell in Currys. They're absolutely fucking useless.
Really useless. Yeah.
So yeah, but he would then just break it down. So it'd be like, okay, well, if you do it this way, it's £50 a month on time card and you're getting your whole house kitted out. But if you take the 5-year warranties, it's only £7.50 extra a month over the rest of your life and your kids' lives and your grandkids' lives.
I mean, it's by today's standards, it's like, in my industry, taking a lifetime bridge.
Yeah.
You just would not do that.
Yeah.
You know, we've got lenders that we have that we deal with, fantastic lenders, by the way. And, you know, for some clients, you know, you can't actually sort of get them on a normal product because for whatever reason, they've got poor credit or the actual property needs some work or something like that. And for the majority of those clients, where it's a situation like that where you can't get a mortgage on it, you put them on a bridge. But what we were doing was effectively like, the bridge only lasts for like 12 months in our industry, but what we were doing was almost like a bridge for like 3-4 years or beyond if they kept adding to it. It was just nuts.
Yeah, it was crazy.
29.9, no. Ooh.
But the original point was that you would work so hard to take them around the store and advise them on the right things, and then you'd have the shopping list, and then you had to go to your sales manager, and then your sales manager would try and add in all the warranties and get them on the credit deal because obviously more commission, all that sort of stuff, and then you'd get them to the credit booth, and then the agreement would be declined, right? Because let's face it, we're in Croydon. It's the early 90s. Most of our customers weren't credit worthy. But then what would happen, especially if it was 5:55 p.m. on a Saturday, at the end of the month particularly, and we were that close to beating Farnborough, Guildford, or one of those stores, or Chingford, or somewhere. Slough was a big one. Then they would somehow find some dodgy way to get it through. So you've let some imbecile walk out the shop with a 33-inch Dolby Surround TV, video, fridge, freezer, washing machine, tumble dryer, all the rest of it, with all these warranties and so on. And probably they weren't going to be able to make the damn payments.
Yeah.
But that's what used to happen back in the day.
Yeah. This is before the days of the internet. So rather than having an internet line going to the bank, what happened was there were specific lines directly to the bank. So it would be a case of, for, you know, some unknown reason, oh, the lines are down, but then it's come back with an accept. You know.
Oh my God, I remember that.
Yeah,
now.
exactly. Yeah, those were, and then when the lines were down, there would be like lists that people would have. Not me, by the way, but there were lists that people would have of people that were previously declined, and they would call those clients up and get them back in and do some business with them because they knew the lines were down and it would get accepted.
Wasn't there an option where if you changed it from customers taking the goods away to home delivery, that it would then...
Yeah, because that was seen as the best proof of address.
Yeah, that's it. And sometimes, if we couldn't get a delivery slot and it looked like the sale was going to fall through, we would say that we would deliver it ourselves, and we would just go and do that.
You know what?
Out of hours, we used to take.
Be talking about this.
No, we shouldn't. But it's 27 years later. What's anyone going to do?
Okay,
but
yeah, you know, fair enough. Okay.
You know, for any of my
with payment protection, there was years, you know, of that. You know. So,
but you know, any of my older customers that were customers of Comet in the 90s or early 2000s, and you did buy from Comet Croydon, I know hands down, thinking about all my older clients, that I'd never met any of you when I was there, so it definitely wasn't me. It was probably the guy that I'm on with now. Go after him. Email. I'll put the show notes in the show notes. Our email address. You can contact me, and I'll give you Phil's details. And that goes. That goes.
Yeah,
for the,
cheers, Bobby.
That goes for the 5-0 as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that was Comet. Got a bit fractured towards the end. I mean, I think I did about 6 or 7 years there, but on and off, part-time and full-time because of education and trying out university and all these other things. And, you know, I just kept coming back like a boomerang. And then eventually I broke out when I got my first job at, might have been Dantech actually, when I was at Dan Technology, because they didn't like me running 2 or 3 jobs at a time. And then when did the end come from you? Because then I ended up working in Wembley, and you and I lost touch for a couple of years.
For me, what happened was I left Comet. I must have been about 23 or 24, I think it was. What happened was I knew I wanted to basically get out of retail, and I wanted to do something where it was much more of a professional sort of type of selling. And at that time, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something that was in selling, and it was going to be professional. And I was trying to find something that I could do. And I tried out quite a few different types of jobs where it was advertised that I would get entry-level training for the product I was selling. And in most of these jobs, there really wasn't any type of training. It was basically, there was an expectation of you having the skills to be able to do it. And, you know, I kind of didn't sort of do too well. So then I decided to I had an opportunity to actually go and work for Argos as a sales manager. So I was running the store in Putney as a sales manager. What I found actually doing that, while it was, you know, good experience, trying to manage a lot of women who really didn't want to be there was a very, very difficult thing to be, because a lot of them were mums. They had other priorities, which I didn't understand at the time. I just thought, well, if you're working here, you should be wanting to work here. And the reality was they were doing just enough to get by in the 4 hours that they were working there before they had to go and pick up their kids or sort their children out for the meals and stuff like that. And I didn't understand that at the time, so I didn't really relate to them too well. But I did that for about a year and a half, and it was all my fault. It was never their fault. I was I was a terrible manager, if I'm honest. But, you know, it was an opportunity to do something which was within the remit that I knew. It was retail. I was good with customers. So I just thought I could transfer that to the actual people that I was managing, and it didn't work out too well. But it was around that time I actually saw you at the train station in Norbury. And
I remember that day when we bumped into each other.
Yeah, and you were working at Tom James, or you just started working there at Tom James.
Yeah.
And then you gave me a call and basically said, you know, one of my colleagues is actually looking for someone. Do you want to come in for an interview? And I was like, okay. I just thought, my idea was, well, if Bobby's doing it, then I should be able to do it as well. Again, another professional sort of position, but the difference was I actually got the proper training that I needed to actually do the sales. So I did that for quite a long period of time, it turned out.
So if we just explain for anyone listening who doesn't know what Tom James is, basically they're a big American tailoring company, and that's where I got my first break in the clothing industry. So I was there from late 2002 through to 2009. So I was there for 7 years. And essentially they were the first mainstream visiting tailors in America, and certainly over here. I mean, when I joined, I had an interview day and I had to follow someone, and basically we went around all these big offices. And you got to remember, Phil and I are from Croydon. We're 2 working class kids. There was probably little prospect, or feel free to interject and interrupt me on this, but there was probably little expectation of us. There was no pressure on us to go to university, basically.
Yeah.
It was basically just kind of do well in your GCSEs, and after that get a job. Yeah. Maybe do your A-levels if you want. Yeah. And then get a job, and maybe get a degree if you want. But if we have to pay for it, then just get a job.
Yeah. I mean, the expectation from my school was there was no one in my school that I knew of that went to university, and the people that were there before me. There wasn't like a raft of people that were basically coming in and basically saying, if you do this, you can get to be like me. I went to university, I worked my arse off, I got this degree, after getting this, great education here at the school, at my school, and having, inspirational teachers. There was none of that. It was really just, find a way to survive. And if you're lucky, you'll get a decent job. There was no sort of thought of potentially getting a career. And so when I got into this, I thought to myself, damn, I'm actually in a situation where I'm actually doing something really professional. I'm talking to top level executives and giving them advice on how they should look when they're going to see their clients. Yeah. And when they're, either doing deals or they're actually negotiating something, or they've got, they've got to deal with, directors and things like that, director level stuff, top level stuff. And I was making sure those guys were looking tip top. And I really enjoyed it. And I actually learned something that I could take for the rest of my life, and that was the only time I actually got that kind of opportunity at that time. And, it was great. It was hard work. We worked hard. We played hard. And it was that kind of environment. There was a time, I remember going out on a night out on a Friday after work, and we were out in a club. We were drinking heavily. About 1:30 in the morning, I said, right, I've got to go to the office. I just got to clear up one or two things, just get back into the office and do some work. And then 6, 7 in the morning, we're there for the next day's worth of sales and calls and stuff like that.
Crazy.
It were mad times.
Do you remember that time when the whole transport network shut down because of snow?
Yeah.
And you and I, we started at the office, which was in Great Titchfield Street near Oxford Street.
Yeah.
And then we ended up walking down to Green Park.
Yeah. Because
we were like, we can catch a 159 or whatever it was from there down towards Streatham and try and get a bit closer to home. Yeah. And then we couldn't catch because obviously there were a few buses running and they were all completely packed, so we couldn't get on.
Yeah.
And in the end, we ended up walking all the way home from Oxford Circus all the way to Norbury. It was crazy that night.
Yeah.
But it was probably one of the best commutes home I've ever had in my life because it didn't really matter because I was with my friend.
Oh, cheers, Bobs.
But
that's awesome.
I'm really glad that because we've never really talked about your time in tailoring. Probably because I didn't want to bring it up, and I've not wanted to bring it up over the years because as much as you did, and I'm really glad that you got a lot out of it, and you gained a lot of skills that you're able to take forward into future roles and the career that you have now, because you're dealing with some pretty high level people in your current role. But you were actually there twice because it didn't work out the first time. Mm-hmm. You didn't make it, and then you went and did something else. And then I had risen through the ranks and I was hiring, and I always felt bad that I couldn't do anything about your first time there. So I approached you and said, would you have another go? But working with me this time, and it will be different. Mm-hmm. And you did, and you came back, and I came under a lot of flack, and you inadvertently came under a lot of flack because there was obviously a lot of backstabbing in that place as well. But people were saying, what the hell has he come back again for? And as far as I was concerned, I felt it showed that you were brave and you were strong and you had character. But then I went and let you down because I was a shit manager. I was crap. I look back on it now with regret and with shame that I let my best friend down, because some people are born to be managers. Some people are born to be salespeople, and very rarely do the two things mix. Part of the problem, so I don't entirely blame myself, but part of the problem is we were in an organisation, it was an American organisation. For all intents and purposes, it was almost like a flipping pyramid because you always...
Oh, it was.
Yeah,
there's no question.
You had layers of leadership, and each layer was making something off the one below.
Yeah.
And so they were always forcing people to go into leadership positions and to build teams.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I never wanted to do. I mean, I think you've known me long enough, nearly 3 decades now, that probably lone wolf is the best word to describe me. Because even there, I would always reposition my desk so that I had my back to everybody else, because I wasn't interested in everybody else. I was only interested in what I was doing, and I was only doing what I was doing, and the same remains to this day, because I love taking care of my customers. For me, my customers are my bosses. They're the people I report to. They're the people I've got responsibilities to. I didn't give a shit about my sales managers and everybody else, because at the end of the day, when there was a problem, they were only interested in themselves and their own bottom line and their profits and their commission and their bonus checks. If a client had a problem, it's like, today, the reason why we're 5-star rated and we have so many people keep coming back to Roberto Revilla London is because when one of our customers has a problem, we find the quickest way to sort it out.
Yeah.
Sometimes that doesn't work, and that's just usually it's communication problems because clients are busy and things get missed. But 99.999% of the time, we will hammer down on that problem no matter what it costs us, and we'll get it sorted. And that just didn't happen. And when you were doing well, people were only happy for you because you doing well meant that they were doing well.
Yeah.
And I wasn't the right person to, especially at that age in my sort of mid to late 20s as well. I was still pretty immature. I wasn't the right person to be put into a leadership position. So I think rehiring you, it came from a good place. And I know you know that. Because in my heart, I wanted to sort of right the wrongs that had been done the first time. And I knew that you had the potential. I knew you could do it and be super successful at it. But then I let you down. And then there were other things going on in my life at the same time. I got separated. What's the word? It wasn't separated from my parents, but I left home because we, had that big bust up. So there was all that going on in my life. And my life outside of work was just falling apart. And all of a sudden, I couldn't see what was going on. Like, nobody really talked about things like mental health and how you handle moments of great stress in your life and so on. You knew what was going on because you were actually there helping me through a lot of it, thank God, giving me a roof over my head and so on. And so basically, listeners, it was a case of boy meets girl, they fall in love, they know that each one is the one. Well, actually, I don't think Carolina did. She was just constantly trying to get rid of me. But, I knew she was the one. Told parents feigned, being happy for you. And then within 24 hours, it had all turned on its head and you were given an ultimatum. And in an Asian family, I don't need to go into the nitty gritty. I think most people know that, in a strict upbringing where your parents really want you to go on the path they've set out for you, they don't like you deviating, you get an ultimatum. And in that moment, I just basically held firm to what I believed in. And I just said, okay, fine, if it's your way or the highway, I'll take the highway. And off I went. But I was going through all of that at the same time. And I think I could have done with more support from my immediate management. But because it was just such a selfish environment, masked as a nurturing environment, I ended up just basically trying to survive myself. And it meant, I had 3 or 4 other team members as well. The whole thing just kind of fell apart for me. And I just went eventually back to being, what I was, which was a salesperson.
Yeah. But I don't want you to think that there was anything that you did that was necessarily wrong. At the time, that was just the way things were, and everyone just sort of like dug in and just got on with it. That was it. There wasn't anything to say that. But by the standards of today, that would be considered, just wrong and the
callous
ways and
because it was very much a survival of the fittest. It was kind of like when you see these nature documentaries and you've got a pack of lions or something or lionesses and they've got cubs and one cub's got an injured paw and the lioness she's injured and she can't find a fucking antelope to feed all of them. So the weakest one, basically, if it gets taken by a bunch of hyenas and stuff, all tough. That's pretty much what it was like.
The thing was, as far as like Tom James, when I was there the second time around, there was a large amount of sales that I was doing. It was only really when the credit crunch hit in 2008 where everything came crashing down.
Yeah.
There was clients that we had that all of a sudden, just couldn't spend the money anymore on suits, and they had appointments booked for months. All of them were getting cancelled left, right,
Diary
and centre.
just collapsing, yeah. Exactly.
And that was really all it was. And then it was just, I then just decided to make the leap because really what I'd realised when I decided I wanted to make the leap and I didn't want to continue anymore, although I was really passionate about helping the clients, the actual product, I wasn't massively excited about it, it's just a shame because I wanted it to be my passion. I wanted it to be something I was really sort of excited about. And when I look back on it, I realized it wasn't. And again, it goes back to when I was doing what I was doing in Comet. I actually like the finance side of it. I like dealing with and helping and having an understanding of what it meant to actually help clients get the products they wanted in a way that they could afford it and it was manageable for them. And it was only through sort of thinking back about that I thought, what's the best possible way for me to do it? And then it hit me, the best possible way was to be doing mortgage advisory. And I didn't know how to get into it at the time, but that whole thing about, when you're thinking about something you want all the time, it just comes to you.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it a lot, about how do I get into it? And then a customer I had at the time, because I had actually moved into working for DFS a little bit after leaving Tom James.
Well, the thing is, I think the point here is that you went back to retail because it was the thing that you knew really well.
Yeah.
But also, importantly, you had 2 young children to support. So suddenly you've got a family. It's not just you and Samantha anymore.
Yeah.
And so you have to do something, right?
Yeah.
And so you were at DFS.
Yeah.
But I mean, you were one of the top salespeople there. And I mean, you had your pick of whichever branch you wanted to work to. And I think they wanted you for store management, didn't they? They wanted to really move you up.
Yeah. And that was the thing. It's like what was happening was it was every single Christmas, every single Easter, every single bank holiday, every single Saturday, every single Sunday. And when you've got a wife and 2 small children, not being around during the times when the children are around is a real problem. And again, going back to mental health, it's that whole thing about, you're not knowing what it's doing to your family when you're not around for them, when they really want you. And, you're working the Christmas period from Boxing Day through to mid-January. Every day it's 9 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock 8 o'clock in the evening was the opening time. So you'd work the entire shift, not get a day off, because that was the time when they needed you most. And the money was fantastic, don't get me wrong. But, from a mental health point of view, it wasn't doing anything for family, knowing that I wasn't around when I really should have been.
Yeah.
And so, again, going back to sort of thinking about, what I want to do and what are my passions, and going back thinking about financial services and how I can actually help people get and deliver the things that they want. A client came into DFS, and as I'm doing his credit agreement for his sofas and everything and his dining tables, he tells me he's a mortgage consultant. And so I asked him about how he got into it, and he gave me the details. I think he worked for Foxtons at the time. And he was saying, you need to do this. You'll probably spend a couple of years just hammering the phones and speaking to clients and things like that. But then eventually, you can then sort of branch out from that and maybe sort of have more, be a bit more specialist and have a bit more of a specialism in terms of what you're doing. And I thought, well, this sounds good. So I then put my CV out there, see if there was any companies that were hiring, because at the time Foxtons were not. And then I got a call back. And it was from what was then known as the buy-to-let business, that's now subsequently turned into Dynamo, and the rest is history. But I mean, the interesting thing about working for Dynamo, for buy-to-let business at the time, was I knew that I was going to have a massive pay cut from where I was going in terms of DFS, but I'd have all of my weekends back, I'd have Christmases back, all my bank holidays back. And it's now got to the stage where I'm actually earning above where I was at DFS, and I'm working my ass off during the weeks, but I've got the balance of being around at the weekends so I can enjoy barbecue with you and spend time with family. So yeah,
we don't have to do. I remember when you were working retail, we would end up having to usually do a Sunday because you would be finishing at around 5:30.
Yeah.
but then the only thing we really could do then was just get a takeaway in at your house and then wait for you to get home.
Yeah.
And we were very limited in the times that we could actually see you. And then obviously if you did have a midweek day off, I think you had Wednesdays or something, that was a day for yourself to go to the gym, spend time with the kids, pick them up from school, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's working retail's, it's pretty tough. I think a lot of people, the way they treat people that work in retail often, they often forget that. Sometimes we do as well. I mean, we were there. We should know firsthand what it was like. We do know firsthand what it's like, but sometimes it's really easy to forget. Although, again, some of the youngsters that are working in retail these days are complete douchebags. So
the thing is, it's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's the fact that they, it's so under valued and so underinvested in, and because there is the growth of the online sales, that it's not their fault. It's just the fact that there is so little investment in training people at that level to actually have a level of professionalism that they don't actually want to. They don't want to do it, and there might be more appealing things now. I mean, there's the growth of there is the growth of apprentices, for example. I mean, we've got quite a few apprentices that have come through our business, and they are doing brilliantly well. These young sort of 16, 17-year-old kids who are now sort of carving out a career for themselves, be it in case management, to support brokers, or they're actually sort of doing a lot of operational work. And some of them have actually gone on to become successful brokers as well. And it's really great to see. And for the youngsters that I work with, and I'm one of the oldest people there, and I get a lot of stick, by the way. Just because I'm a little bit older than them. And
days where I shave, people think, for some reason, younger people think that I'm in my early 30s.
Good for you.
Absolutely, I find absolutely hilarious. I'm flattered, but
awesome. Oh, good for you. Yeah, that's not happening where I work, I tell you. But they know.
But I know what you mean, because they will dig in. Like we've got a 22-year-old Kevin. I should get him on the podcast. Actually, he's got quite an amazing story already. Is Kevin 22? Yeah, he is 22 because he keeps reminding me that he's half my age.
And they know, these kids now, they know they're young. We didn't know we were young when we were younger.
No, we didn't.
They know that they're younger. They'll say things like, well, I'm only 24. When I was 24, it wasn't, I'm only 24. It's, shit, I'm 24. I need to sort my life out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, when we're growing up, I mean, never mind getting married, but I mean, if we didn't have a few kids around the place by the time we were 17, we were getting way behind.
It's true. There's friends from my school, and their children now would be what? They'd be in their early 20s.
Their children now are great grandparents.
Their children be the early... Oh, no, don't. Oh, my God, no, don't. Oh, jeez. There is the odd one of those in Croydon, that's for sure. I'm 35, I'm a granddad. Nah. Just...
No, but I was going back to, what I was saying about young people being douchebags. I don't mean all young people, obviously. I mean, Kevin, who is helping me out at the house that we're refurbishing, he's hopefully going to be able to do his master's, so he's studying law. And his story is quite amazing. He had to take a couple of years out of university because he lost his dad, unfortunately, about 2 or 3 years ago to cancer. His dad was only 50. So he had to take some time out to look after his mum, and he's got brothers and sisters, so he was looking after the family. They're Congolese, so that very close knit kind of. He's back studying again. He's also a semi-pro rugby player. And he also does a lot of labouring jobs. So he's advertised himself on local bulletin boards as a gardener, stroke labourer, stroke. He's been learning how to do bricklaying and carpentry when he's been with me because, I've got skills, man. And I have a lot of fun with him. But, yeah, he does remind me of my age often. But what I meant, was that it's just basic manners seem to be lacking. Basic manners and a bit of common sense is what I mean.
I think for the most part that's probably true. I mean, fortunately, I think the people I'm associated with in my workplace, I never see that. I never have to. But yes, I'm well aware, particularly when I think about what happened in the the England game, Italy game. There was a lot of people who were either building up who couldn't get into the game, who just basically joined the crowd, And it will come out, and there'll be a time in the future it will come out, we'll find out exactly what happened, why it happened, all that kind of stuff. And there's numerous reasons, and it wasn't just old people, it wasn't just young people, it was old middle-aged people as well that were going crazy. But there is this kind of undercurrent of people that just generally just haven't had good role models for whatever reason, and they think it's okay to kind of, and acceptable to just do whatever they please.
Yeah.
And, they don't care about sort of who they're hurting or who they're upsetting, and they just sort of think that it's okay to kind of like, dump on people, be it, people who need help in a retail environment or people who are just, not looking out for other people. And it's like, it was very important growing up, we looked out for our neighbours and stuff like that. And I see less and less of that now.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Racism, especially last Sunday with the England final and so on and everything, all the fallout from that. Racism in football is something that you've written about recently because you do have an online blog. You don't publicise it because you tend to write for yourself, not for other people. But I've obviously read your blog post.
The reason I do it is I just like to collect my thoughts on written down, because there's a lot that people talk about. I'm not the sort of person that will just go into a debate with someone. I like to just keep my thoughts to myself. I've had so many instances in the past where I've said and done the wrong things, and I'm often nervous about sort of where I am and who I say things to. Now, when I'm amongst friends, not the case. I will just say it like it is.
Oh, yeah. If my wife was here, she would testify to that.
Yeah. But what I tend to do is when there's something that's happened which I don't agree with, or I feel that's something that's upset me, or something that I just feel isn't right, I'll think about it and then I'll just write it down, and it usually comes out in a form of an article of some kind. Yeah.
Do you find that, we'll get on to talking about the racism bit in a minute, but do you find that a form of therapy as well when you sit down to write like that?
Yeah, because I think because there's a lot of people that think they know what's going on. And so they'll come out with something really, really quickly, and it'll be like a reaction, but they've not really looked into it in enough detail. And when people say it in the form of a reaction, so I listen to a lot of like Talk Sport and things like that. My sort of commute is about 40 minutes, and I'm in the car, so I have the luxury of being able to listen to the radio. So I listen to a lot of Talk Sport, and there'll be people that will react, but they won't know the whole story. And because they're broadcasting it, it means that everyone else hears it, and then they form their own opinion off of what that person said, rather than looking into it. And what I prefer to do is, if something's happened, I want to look at it in a little bit more depth to find out exactly what happened, and then find out why it happened, and then I'll just write about it, and I'll just research it, and then just write about it, and then do it that way. Yeah. And it makes it easier, because then if the subject comes up, I can remember what I wrote because I've written it down, because it's easier for me to remember and absorb it. And they say, well, actually, no, that's not the case. It's actually because of this, and this is the reason why. And then it makes it a little bit easier. But I can't do it without writing it down first in an article. So that's basically it, yeah. I'm just trying to think back to when my first experience of being different was. So, again, because people can't see us, generally people know what I look like because I'm on the cover of my podcast, but Phil is half Bangladeshi on your dad's side, and half white English on your mum's side. Yeah, she's a Brit, yeah.
So, and Phil, for all intents and purposes, is a 6'1" hunk of brownness.
Oh, bless you. Yeah.
I think because growing up, obviously, your first few years, you're in this bubble with your parents, and I wasn't aware really that I was different to any other kid visually. It's very hard to explain that, but hopefully people will kind of know what I mean. But the first time that I felt that I was different to everybody else and that it might be a negative thing was when I was probably about 4 or 5 years old, and I was at infant school. And you used to do nursery rhyme or singing hymns in assembly. And I remember this one time. So there was the kids of a non-white origin at school. I'm trying to be so careful with the way that I say things. so I don't come across as a brown Alf Garnet. But I'm not. But there was a boy called Warren who must have been from some South Indian sort of heritage. And there was another girl called Sabrina, absolutely beautiful girl, and she was half black, half white.
Yeah.
And she had that beautiful kind of very light, not white, not brown sort of complexion, and the frizzy hair, and like her hair was beautiful. Like you just wanted to touch it all the time.
Yeah, right.
And then there was me, right? This sort of overly tall, because I was much taller than everyone else when I was at school, because I had growth spurts up until my teens. And so we were these three ethnic minority kids in the school in 1982, 83. And so it's assembly time, and we get to the hymn singing part. And there was a song called, I don't know what the song's called, but it kind of went, the ink is black, the page is white, together we learn to read and write, And I think it's the second verse. And the verse goes, a child is black, a child is white. Together we learn to read and write, And we were all stood in a circle. And at the point where that verse kicks in and a child is black, all of the white kids pointed at me, Warren, and Sabrina.
Right. Okay.
And I turned around. I got so upset. Something broke inside me. And I got so upset and I shouted, I'm not black. Right. I'm brown.
Yeah.
And they just laughed at me.
Right.
And then the kids were not all of them, but some of the kids would then be singing that, a child is black, a child is white, all day at us.
Yeah. And
that was my first experience of racism, which probably, you're talking about 4, 5, 6-year-old kids here, right? Mm. So were they doing it to be malicious? What? I don't know. I mean, someone who's more qualified in child psychology will probably, hopefully, be able to contact me and tell me. But it stuck with me. And when I got home, I told my mum about it. And, my mum, she used to just shrug those things off. She would, my mum, right?
Yeah.
We'll try and... I've already dropped the F-bomb once, so let's just,
sorry, Mum.
Yeah, exactly. Rated PG style, we're allowed one F-bomb on this podcast, no more, per episode. But she would say to me, son, the funny thing with white people is that as soon as the sun comes out, they take their clothes off and they will go bask in that sun and they will burn themselves, because what they want to do is they want to achieve the same colour that you have. They all want to be brown.
Yeah.
So when they say these things, don't pay them any attention.
Yeah. Because
inside, they just want to be like you.
Yeah. Well, for me, I was...
By the way, that didn't really help, but I kind of got her point.
Do you know what? For me, I was not aware that I was any different to anyone else until quite later on. I must have been about 7 or 8. Essentially, growing up, I had to go to church, and it was extremely multicultural. It was very, very uncommon. Everyone was different. My school was multicultural. The kid who sat next to me, his name was Iku. He sat next to me. Yeah, his name.
That's
Iku.
really interesting.
He's Nigerian. Iku Amiaka.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, he sat next to me, and he was, he was Nigerian. He was, we were good friends. I had another friend, Omar, who was like Asian. He was Bengali, and then I had another friend, Stephen. He was white. It was. I didn't notice any difference, but I think it was around about 7 or 8. In our area, there were parts of our area that we just didn't go to, and I never knew the reasons why. But when we kind of went into this area, it seemed that our presence kind of antagonized certain people. And
where was this?
This was kind
Pollard's Hill.
No, yeah. So it was like Briar Road, around that sort of area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What happened was, and I wasn't aware of it at the time, but my sister told me that one of these kids basically lit a firework and threw it at us. and apparently it missed me by about that much. It wasn't that far away, but I was completely oblivious to it. But apparently we were sort of targets of certain abuse. My next door neighbour, he was a little bit of a he liked to be a bit street, and he would try and antagonise people. He got beat up on a bus quite badly. And my brother, by the time I was in my teenage years, my brother walked through Mitcham Common with a friend of his, and he got really badly beaten up. But it was never really, it wasn't like a constant where we were constantly abused. It was just ever so often, the odd occasion, it was just like, it was clear to everyone that I was of Indian origin when I was like, in the 80s and 90s. By the time I got to sort of my late teens, early 20s, I've been thought of as Brazilian, I've been thought of as Italian, I've been thought of as like, Middle Eastern, I've been thought of as Egyptian. There's been so many different things, and I don't know what it is.
People can't work out where you're from.
They can't work it out, because it's like, there's, I come across and I have the sort of British, and going back to sort of working in Tom James, I realised that I was a bit too sort of Croydon, and dealing with some of these top level executives, the way I was and the way I carried myself didn't always come across the best to some of these sort of like white upper class, men or or even just the top level sort of executives didn't come across as well. So I decided to go to a public speaking course that was in Brondesbury Park. And I did that and got my certificate. And that
I remember you doing that, because
Yeah.
didn't you used to come over, because we were living just across from there, and you used to come over to the flat.
Yeah,
So Carolina and I's first flat together.
Yes, and I did that, and I completed my course, and that's basically helped me speak the way I speak now. I'm a little bit more relaxed now, but generally I'm on the phone with people, or if I'm speaking to people, I'm very, very sort of come across as quite posh, come across as very sort of polite and everything like that, and I feel comfortable in an environment where I'm actually talking publicly. But I couldn't do that before I did that course.
Yeah,
and so when I come across, speak to people who I meet for the first time, I tend to be a bit more polite and, pleasure to meet you, and sir and madam and all that sort of stuff. And so, and particularly because a lot of the work I do is now on the phone, no one would have a clue, they would not have a clue sort of where I'm originally from or anything like that. And when people meet me, people aren't 100% sure, but growing up, having that kind of like South London, darker skin, it was obvious that I was Indian. Or Bengali or Pakistani or something like that. Now, it's, is he, I don't know, is he like this, I don't know, where's he from, he's a bit exotic, he's clearly not from around here, and it's like, it's fine, I'm just Phil, it's okay, let's just chat, I'm Philip, nice to meet you, we can talk, it's fine,
I think my my drama and theatre arts experience kicked in when I got into the proper big corporate world, because obviously I'd never been in these big fancy offices before. I'd never dealt with these types of professional people. There certainly weren't anyone who were partners of PricewaterhouseCoopers or law partners or, partners of accountancy firms and so on in our normal friends. Like, we had no friends whose dads were... No. I talk to some of my friends now, and it's like one of my close friends, his daughter, her boyfriend... his father is a partner at Arthur Anderson's or one of those consultancy places. We didn't have that.
No, not
we had
at
no
all.
reference point. And so what I used to do was, within the first few seconds, I'd kind of get the measure of them, and then I'd mimic.
Yeah.
Right? So
you do a lot of mimicking. Right?
Yeah, even on the
phone. You do a lot of mimicking.
Right? So suddenly my accent, I'd use about, during one phone call session over 3 hours every afternoon, you lot would hear me do about 5 or 6, even more than that, like dozens of different...
I've
just
heard
alter my accent.
You had an Irish client. You tried to speak to him, and you had an Irish accent.
You don't go in full flipping Irish brogue, do you?
But
you just put a tiny little lilt.
You're pretty close. It was like all of a sudden, I'm Paddy Revilla.
I'm
Paddy Revilla.
Do I catch an Irish kind of lilt in your accent? Then I'd just be like, yeah, I worked there for like 5 years. Right? So my accent's a bit mixed up. But I mean, you just did what you had to do to try and be seen as.
On their side.
Somewhere on their side, somewhere on their level. Yeah. Because really,
yes,
we've
read the book. People like people that are like them. Yes,
yeah,
it's very much
exactly.
that,
That's it. I remember one time though when one of my customers, and this is actually quite late in my career, right? It's only about 6 years ago. I'm actually seeing him on Tuesday morning. But
Hello.
So I'm talking away to him at his house in Chelsea, and he stops me and he said, "You're not from where I think you're from. You are from South London somewhere." And I said, "Yeah, I'm from Croydon, but how did you know that?" He said, "It's just sometimes you just drop your accent, and then certain words or certain ways I pronounce certain words or certain things that, like, I've probably just done it literally in the last 5 seconds, just gave it away." And he's obviously got a very good ear, and he's a very attention to detail sort of person.
Yeah.
But yeah, I said to him, "Yeah, I'm from Croydon. I'm from Croydon." But then when you're found out, it's like when you're watching a movie, right, and the villain's been in disguise the whole time, and then suddenly they get found out, or the end of Scooby-Doo or something.
Scooby-Doo,
You take your mask off, and then you're just like, "Oh, he's found me out now. Yeah, I'm from Croydon. And what? I'm from South London, Streatham, all that."
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when I listen back to the pod, I've never liked my voice because I think I sound like a posh Tory. But anyway,
No, you most certainly don't sound like a posh Tory.
oh, thank God for that.
You don't sound like that, you know.
I'm not that all.
You don't have to
I don't
bring
think
yourself down. Come
not
on,
all
man.
Conservatives are bad people, by the way.
No, absolutely. Most politicians, actually, for the purposes of this, most politicians are actually very good people, because Bobby and I have met a lot of those people that were not as well educated or as smart or as intelligent as those politicians that are doing what they do in Westminster. But the people that we worked for, and that Bobby works for, earn tremendously more than those politicians, but those politicians want to help. You know, and the people that we're working for, some of those guys, you know, when I was making suits for them, some of them made a tremendous amount of money, but those politicians were more intelligent than them, and they're making significantly less.
Talking about making suits, because we may as well just get some tailoring into a supposedly tailoring podcast.
Let's get them in there, absolutely.
I think it's now being well established that this is a chat show. And I'm happy with that, because I get to spend time with some great people, and being completely selfish, every single episode, my brain gets bigger and gets filled with more knowledge. So it's been great for me. But speaking of tailoring, I recently got to work for you, which was really cool.
Yes,
so
you did, yeah.
Got to measure you up, made you a dinner suit and a new work suit, and shirts and ties and cufflinks and whatever. And obviously you've not been wearing a suit that much through the pandemic like most people, but you did change your kind of work from home kind of rules quite some time ago, actually, during the pandemic, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Tell us about that.
So I basically decided that in order to actually get a balance for what I do at home, when I was working from home all the time, I knew I needed to get a balance. And I knew from all my years when I was out seeing clients that I always felt my best when I looked my best. So I decided to always make sure that when I was in my office at home, I have a cabin in my house. It sounds more grand than it is, but it's, you know...
Oh, it's pretty cool. That thing at the bottom of your garden? I want one of those.
Well, anyway. But I was able to work from there, and I basically made sure that when I dressed in the morning, I always made sure I had a clean shirt on, had my suit all prepared and pressed, had a tie, and put it all together, and I would wear it and go from there. I didn't always wear ties, but I always made sure that I was dressed in the suit, and I was speaking to customers all day, and it broke my day up very nicely so that when work was finished, I could come out of the suit and I could go into something more casual, and it felt like there was a difference and a different way of thinking at that time of day, and it meant that I was present with my family and my wife and everything like that, and that was very important to me as well.
Yeah, I'm hearing that a lot more now, that people are starting to kind of put smarter clothing back on as they are drifting back to work or starting to see customers again. And how did it feel being fitted by me? And I'm looking for you to give a review here.
No, you know what? The thing is, like, I've had quite a few people in my time when I was working in Tom James and various different of the, visiting tailors, whatever you want to call them, tried to sort of like fit me up for the suits and things like that. And, and I don't mean to try and blow smoke up this boy's ass, but it is...
I just do it myself if he doesn't.
But it is real, because I've had some of them like make suits for me and everything like that. But actually I tell you, the first time that Bobby actually measured me up and got me fitted up for my suit was for your wedding. Because you actually did the pattern for the dinner jacket I had at that time.
That's true.
And that was actually one of the best fitted suits I had. I mean, I was fitter at the time. I was training for a 10K at the time, so I was fitter. And it looked amazing. We looked great. We all looked fantastic for your wedding in the dinner jackets and everything like that. So that's the first time. So I knew actually when I wanted to have suits again that I could trust him to make suits for me. So he's made to measure blue suit, and he's made charcoal grey custom suit as well. Which I absolutely love. Put on a bit of weight and need to have it adjusted, but that's another story. But the dinner jacket, I've picked that out recently, put that on fairly recently. Again, looks immaculate, looks fantastic. So yes, if I'm going to have a suit made, yes, I will have Bobby do it for me, absolutely.
I mean, I wasn't actually intending for you to turn that into a, like 1 minute advertisement for me, but thank you. And I will write down everything you said and dice it up and, use it in my marketing, because that was great. But I mean, that's how it should be, right? And I'm really, really glad that you took a decision to actually start dressing up for work, even though you were still working from home.
Yeah.
Because it does prove the point that, I mean, certainly for me, wearing smarter clothes is an armour, and it gets my head straight, and actually I'm at work. Some of my clients actually that have got kids running around the house throughout the pandemic said that they'd actually started wearing suits, and it was like a coded language for the kids. Yeah. If daddy's wearing a suit, daddy working, do not disturb daddy. Well, daddy not wearing suit, you can have at it.
Do you know what? In my case, my two... Well, particularly my eldest wouldn't make a blind bit of difference. It wouldn't make a bit of difference to him. But if he decided to come into the cabin when I was working, run around, and that's happened on a few occasions, nothing you can do. And then and that's the thing. Now, when clients listen to and hear in the background, one of them thought I had a young child. And I said he's actually 11, but he just likes to make noises when he's watching stuff. And so it was just they just take it in their stride now, and it's just very normal. So it's just people aren't so overly concerned about being, sounding sort of everything. As long as the content is professional and gets them the things that they need, the stuff in the background, that doesn't bother them so much. For me, wearing suits is a very personal thing, because, I mean, I could do the job I do without wearing the suits. And all the times when I was making really nice suits for clients, I would actually tell them, yes, I'm making you, the best thing suit. You're going to look the best possible for when you see your directors and you see your executives and you're doing those deals. But frankly, if you were rubbish at your job, no matter how good this suit looks, it's not going to make you an amazing, director of whatever it is you do, Me wearing an amazing suit doesn't make me an amazing mortgage broker, but it's because I take the time to find out what's important for them. That's what makes me a really good mortgage broker, and also managing expectations.
But what I'm starting to talk to people about now is consider dressing, right? So You're absolutely right. You don't need a suit to do what you do or to be amazing at what you're either great at what you do or you're not. But it's more about impressions. And when we've just come through the last 18 months where a lot of people, myself included, actually, do you know what? I've done quite a lot of new business and new clients. Weird. That's just because I'm awesome. But and also our Google reviews. Thank you to all our customers who are listening that have given us such amazing reviews, and they're all true. No, they are. They are. Our customers don't tend to. If they're going to do something, they do it right. They don't do something for the sake of doing it. Same as they won't recommend me to people for the sake of recommending me. They'll only recommend you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But what I'm saying to people is it's not so much about whether wearing a suit or wearing a blazer and a pair of chinos makes you more competent or not. Of course it's not. But as you start to meet people that you're trying to do business with that have never met you before, it's that first impression.
Yeah.
Now, you don't need to wear a suit to create a good first impression, but you need to look like you bothered and you cared about what you put on that day.
Absolutely.
Because in those first few seconds, if you're just wearing a t-shirt and a pair of shorts and flip-flops, that does not take any effort whatsoever.
And that's interesting, right? Because we actually do still have Zoom meetings, and actually one of my clients is actually on a base in Antarctica at the moment. So the only way I could actually speak to him is through Zoom, and that's what I've done. Put on the suit and everything. It didn't make me do a better job, but I felt better about the fact that I actually made sure I had made an effort. We also have our lenders will meet us to tell us about their latest products, or if I've got any issues with any of my cases that I'm working on, I use that opportunity for these meetings I have with Zoom to speak to the either the underwriters or the business development managers. There's one business development manager in particular. She always makes an effort to look her best, and she's working from home. She's not actually, I mean, more recently she's met clients, but throughout the whole pandemic, she's not been able to go out and meet any clients, but she always makes sure she looks immaculate when she's on a Zoom meeting. And I decided to do the same. I went on the Zoom meeting and I made sure I had the suit on and everything. And it was just really refreshing for her, because everyone else was just, and it's not there, and it's fair enough. People want to be casual and actually look. I mean, our rule is in the office, you have to wear a shirt with a collar. That's the only rule in terms of the dress code. You can wear jeans as long as they don't have rips in them. So tailored jeans, you're not allowed to wear shorts, but you're allowed to wear trainers or comfortable shoes and things like that. I tend, just because it's easier and my casual clothes are crap, I tend to wear the suit and I wear the jacket and the trousers and the shirt, and it just makes me feel good. Don't always wear the jacket particularly now, but always wear the shirt and the tailored trousers. And when I go into a Zoom meeting, and I'm meeting with these business development managers, it does make me feel good when I'm making an impression and they remember me, and that means they'll work a little bit harder on my cases to maybe potentially, if there's an issue, to get it through. It doesn't always work. It's not always the easiest thing to try and negotiate with a lender that's got backing from however many investors to actually get the product that you want for your client. So there's certain criteria that you have to follow, and you can't just take the piss.
Yeah.
But there might be occasions when they can do something on their criteria, and if you've made an impression, then they'll remember you, and it just helps with that going forward as well.
Exactly, that's it. I mean, the fact that you've verbally given it your best shot, and you've visually, in the way that you've presented yourself visually, given it your best shot, at least if it doesn't work out, you know that you gave it your best shot.
Yeah.
Every one of us that has taken a shot at something and missed, and we didn't make an effort, or we cut a corner somewhere, we know why we missed.
Yeah.
So that's very powerful. And the thing that I think a lot of clients are realizing is also, in a sea of people, especially through this summer, I don't think people are really going to go back to what I call proper formal dressing until the autumn. But through the summer, people are going to be a lot more casual. And something you said there actually, it was very, very true. It gives people a chance to stand out in a sea of mediocre. Just elevating your appearance gives you a chance to stand out. Yeah. If you want to.
Yeah. And not everyone will notice anything specifically about it, but it won't be, they'll sort of, they won't say, oh yeah, he's the guy that always wears suits. I mean, they don't think of me like that, but it is just something that I do because it just makes me feel good, and it just makes me feel more comfortable in that sort of environment.
Yeah. So. The thing I noticed recently, so I'm slowly going back to people's offices, not as much as I want to, but so people are still either largely coming to see me or I'm visiting them at home, but I am doing some office based meetings. And when I walk in, so before you go, you get all of these COVID notices, and you have to show this and that pass, and you have to take ID with you to get into a lot of big buildings in the city now as well. And obviously I always go dressed to the nines. And what I find is that people can't do enough for me when I walk in. And if I've forgotten my ID, it doesn't matter because I look important. So they think, because I don't go in with like a load of suits under my arm and a trolley or whatever, I walk in with a professional, bag and all that kind of stuff. So for all intents and purposes, I could be their best client.
So you don't have the trolley anymore? You don't need to do that?
I haven't used a trolley for donkey's years.
Yeah, because we used to walk everywhere. You go on the...
I still walk everywhere, but
you got the scooter as well, haven't you?
I've got the scooter. I've got the Mini now as well, Mini, so I do use the Mini. But otherwise, I'll use the bus. I'll use the tube. If I've got time, I'll walk. Very often from Tottenham Court Road to South Bank, I know that I can do that walk in 36 minutes. So yeah, I'll just kind of carry stuff. But the point is, especially you don't know when you're going into an office if you're going to see someone who's having, suits made, but then he's just earlier that morning told 5 members of staff they're not getting their bonuses. So I don't like walking in looking like a tailor. Most people will guess because of the way that I'm dressed. Yeah. But the way that I dress when I go into people's offices is I dress like I could be one of their best clients that's just walked in.
Right.
So what happens is when I walk through, someone opens the door for me, and then I say to them, I'm so embarrassed, I've forgotten my ID, and they'll go, because who the hell carries their passport and driving license around every way? I certainly don't. And they'll just tell me, no, it's fine, don't worry about it. And I'm like, COVID thing, oh God, where is it? And I'm looking at my phone for the pass that they gave me and I can't find it. But again, they're like, no, sir, it's fine, not to worry. And then I'll get cups of tea or coffee, or, sometimes people offer to run out and get me something if they haven't got what's to my liking, and, biscuits, or if there's food being laid out because they're an event, I'll get invited to go over and partake in that as well. And that's when I have to tell them, I was like, I'm not a client, I'm actually so-and-so's tailor. But then they don't then go, oh, and look at me like I'm, crap off someone's shit. They'll go, oh, okay, cool. Well, you look really nice. And I get lots of compliments as well. The other thing I've noticed is, so I'm doing a lot of kind of using, Oxford Street as my little rabbit run between Marble Arch or Mayfair and where we are at the workroom. And it's obviously getting busier and busier. But I'm the only clown that's walking down there dressed in a 3-piece suit, but I get so many people stopping me. So I feel like a celebrity.
But the only other people that probably would be are probably like journalists that maybe have to sort of report for like, the news or something like that. They're probably the only other people that are in suits.
Yeah,
so you're either a broadcaster or, you decided to dress up.
Well, I did get recognised recently on Wigmore Street.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this guy ran across the road. And I thought he was selling me some sort of, palm reading or something like that. So I was sort of like trying my best to kind of veer in a different direction, but I was running late for a meeting. And so he made a point of walking alongside me, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what are you trying to sell me? And he said, Roberto. And I was like, huh? Oh, he knows my name. Okay. This is a new type of sales strategy that these fortune tellers or gypsies or whatever are using. What the hell is going on? And he said, Roberto, he said, I just wanted to let you know that I listened to your podcast and I think you're doing such a great job. Like, thank you so much. And I just really wanted to say hello. And I was like, oh my God, that was so nice.
Oh, awesome.
And then I felt like a dick, like a right wanker for, judging a book by its cover. But come on, to be fair, when you walk around that area, you get accosted a lot by people trying to flog you, flowers wrapped in foil and stuff like that. But yeah, that was just really, really nice. I was like...
Random,
yeah. But then I can kind of see, because the angle he came in at me at, when he saw me... Because my most famous public photos are ones of my left profile.
Yes.
That's what he would have seen. So no wonder he recognised me. But that was really nice. But also it probably helped that I was in, a bright blue suit with a white shirt and a bright red tie.
Yeah, so you stood out, basically.
I really stood out. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I've seen that. Oh, was it? Where would I have seen it?
Yeah, exactly. But
it's interesting because, like, when I think about, like, the early days of your podcast, I think there was, like, maybe 3 or 4 actual sort of reviews on there. I mean, I've not seen it more recently, but how many reviews have you got on there now?
Probably 3 or 4.
Oh, really?
I mean, there's about 12 ratings.
Yeah.
But, I think a lot of people listen on Spotify and places like that where you can't actually rate it. So,
Okay.
if anyone that's listening now that's listening via Apple Podcasts or iTunes or whatever the bloody hell it's called these days, please do hit the little star rating on there. And if you have a minute, please do give a review, because it really helps with all the algorithms and stuff, and it just helps more people find the show. And today's episode with Phil sharing his story and all the ups and downs that he's been through, but to where he's got to a successful point today, could really help someone else that's going through the same sort of stuff. So yeah, ratings and reviews are so important, not just for me, not just for the show, but just trying to get the word out there and trying to help other people. If one person reads a review that you're going to write after this episode and is inspired to listen and get some help, then it would have been worth it. So don't think of me when you're leaving ratings and reviews. Do it for some other person out there that might need some help. Phil, I think we're going to call it call time.
Okay.
Because we've got kids and wives running around the house that I'm hearing and talking more loudly outside. So we should probably go rejoin them. Okay. But I'd love to do this again and have you back. I didn't warn Phil before he was coming to my house today that we were going to record an episode. I've always wanted to have him on. I think he's got such an amazing story, and it's a story of bravery, of fighting for what you believe in. And, he saw a career path and it took him a few years to get there, but he made it. And kudos to you, because that is hugely inspirational and you're one of my heroes.
Well, thanks very much. I mean, there were bumps in the road, but, there was lots of people that helped me get there. So, and you were one of them as well. So I wouldn't have known about, the opportunity doing tailoring had it not been for you. Yes, we've had, there's been challenges for both of us, but, eventually sort of we found the directions that we wanted in life. It took a while for me, yes, but I mean, we found the directions that we want to go into, and that's really the important thing. And ultimately, I think the way that the methods that I've used haven't really changed from when I was like 17, 18, because all I ever wanted to do was just help people, get what they want. And, particularly when I'm doing, and I help a lot of investors. And for the investors, it's very much about the yield and making sure that there's enough profit after, you've made all your, had all your costs associated with it and things like that. But for those clients and those people that are doing residential mortgages and they just want to live in the area that they've always wanted to live in. I have a client who I got a residential mortgage for recently, and all she ever wanted to do was remain in the area of London that she liked. It was somewhere in north of London. Alperton, is it?
Alperton, yeah, that's near Wembley.
Yeah, so, or is it? No, it's not Alperton. It's where's that place in the north of, just like in Hertfordshire? Like not
Harpenden.
Harpenden, that's the one.
I'm going there on Monday actually,
yeah.
to see a
client. All she ever wanted to do, all she kept saying to me was, "I want to stay in Harpenden, but we've outlived the the actual space in this house, and I need a mortgage of another £200,000-300,000. I have no idea how to do it." I went through so many different options with her. It didn't immediately work with the original lender it went with, but we did find a solution with another lender. She managed to move into the place that she wanted to. She got the place she wanted. Her family's growing, and it's in the area of Harpenden. And it's things like this, and that's what really, really does it for me, is making sure that people can stay, and getting the things that they want, that's going to make their lives better, for their families and things like that. So it's just, sorry, Bailey, the dog, just for everyone that's listening, Bailey is Bobby's dog, and he's taking my attention away, so I'm slightly distracted by this little dog here.
Yeah,
but
Bailey's been with us the whole time.
Yeah,
our rescue cocker.
He's been as good as gold as well, haven't you, Bailey? Yes, you have.
It's
all right.
Pretty much the 4th anniversary since we found him.
Yep.
And we're going to be talking about that in the next episode, because, spoiler alert, we're going to have co-founder of Roberto Revilla London and my wife and partner in this crazy roller coaster called life, Carolina. Even I mispronounced the name. Shit.
Oh, Carolina.
Yeah, I mean that's why I keep. Well, you know when we're saying it on the phone, it's like Carolina, and often if you say Carolina, they'll go with a K because they think it's like the Polish or the.
Yeah.
And so what we do, we always go no Carolina as in Carolina, the state, but often they'll go with a K. But Carolina's going to be joining me for the next episode.
Does she know?
She does. Yeah,
okay,
she
fine.
does.
Right.
It's that's going to be potentially a spicy one, I think, because we're meant to be talking about Bailey's 4th anniversary with us and all the trials and tribulations of finding him and so on. I won't give too much away now, but now I'm thinking about Bailey being behind the microphone. But yeah, well, you know what my wife and I are like. It's I think there won't be any fireworks lying around, but somehow they'll get lit and they'll explode all over the place. So it should be a fun one.
All sharp objects and firecrackers, you'll be fine.
Exactly. But yeah, I digress. So the point is, anyone, whilst we're on, we might as well do a little plug. But anyone who's looking to move house or who's looking to remortgage or just needs some general friendly help and advice, I will put Phil's LinkedIn profile link in the show notes for you, and he'd be more than happy to help.
There's lots and lots of investors that really need some help at the moment because there's lots of changes in the industry, and for investors it's becoming more and more difficult to get advice, the right sort of advice for mortgages. So I would absolutely be happy to help, of course.
Exactly. Brilliant. That's it for another week. As always, if you're liking the show, and as I said before, please give us a rating if your podcast platform allows, and give us a review if your favourite podcast platform allows. It really, again, as I said, helps new listeners to find the show. Also remember, sharing is caring. Tailoring Talk is evolving into a show where my guests and I share stories with a view to trying to help other people and make the world a slightly better place. So do feel free to share us with your family, your friends, your colleagues, your children, just, your neighbours, anyone really that you know. Take care, be good to each other, enjoy the rest of this weekend and the weeks to come and the summer. I can't wait for you to join me on the next one. As I said, it's going to be a firecracker because Carolina's joining me for the first time. Hopefully I'll survive it. See you soon.